Welcome to the Jukebox Podcast from WP Tavern. My name is Nathan Wrigley. Jukebox is a podcast which is dedicated to all things WordPress. The people, the events, the plugins, the blocks, the themes, and in this case, learning about the work of the Automattic Special Projects team. If you'd like to subscribe to the podcast, you can do that by searching for WP Tavern in your podcast player of choice, or by going to wptavern.com/feed/podcast, and you can copy that URL into most podcast players. If you have a topic that you'd like us to feature on the podcast, I'm keen to hear from you and hopefully get you or your idea featured on the show. Head to wptavern.com/contact/jukebox and use the form there. So on the podcast today, we have Christy Nyiri and Mike Straw. Christy leads the design arm of Automattic's Special Projects team. She taught herself to design and code 17 years ago and has since worked with a wide range of clients, many of whom you'll hear about later. Mike is an engineer with the Special Projects team. He's been writing code for over 4 decades and has been deeply into WordPress for the last 7 years. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the work done at Automattic's Special Projects team, a somewhat mysterious entity within Automattic. Because of its low visibility and its detachment from regular product output, many have never heard of the team or what they produce, but that is about to change. Mike and Christy tell us all about the team, what they do, and who they work with and for. They clarify the unique operational model of the team, which resembles an internal agency, focusing exclusively on WordPress and open source projects. Their mission isn't driven purely by profit. They often support non-profits and contribute back to the WordPress community. We get into the team's philosophy of learning from mistakes while striving for excellence. From their work with prominent websites to assisting household names to more philanthropic work, Mike and Christy illustrate how their work showcases the power and versatility of WordPress. In short, they strive to show the very best that WordPress can produce. This episode highlights the technical and design prowess of the Special Projects team, but also captures the passion and dedication of its members. Whether you're a WordPress developer, a web design enthusiast, or someone interested in the operational intricacies of high-calibre web projects, this episode is for you. If you'd like to find out more, you can find all of the links in the show notes by heading to wptavern.com/podcast, where you'll find all the other episodes as well. And so, without further delay, I bring you Christy Nyiri and Mike Straw. I am joined on the podcast by Christy Nyiri and Mike Straw. Hello, both.
Hello.
Hello.
We're going to have a conversation today from WordCamp US. We are in one of the meeting rooms in Portland, Oregon. Christy and Mike have joined me today because they work on a really interesting team, which I don't know much about. So they're going to school me in how this all hangs together and how it works. Before we begin that, though, Christy first and then Mike afterwards. Would you mind just giving us a little potted bio about yourselves? Maybe a minute or something like that.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Christy Nyiri. I'm Canadian, but I live in Brooklyn now. I've been with Automattic for a little over 4 years, and it's the longest job I've ever held. So that says something about Automattic as a company.
Thank you very much, Christy. And Mike, give us your little potted bio.
I'm Mike. I'm currently from Ohio, but I'm from everywhere. I traveled around a lot as a kid and then in my adult life. But I joined Automattic about 7 years ago, and I just joined the Special Projects team 2 years ago. I kind of can't hold down a job, so I keep changing places I work. I did that my whole life, changing jobs between companies or between organizations. And then in Automattic, I've kind of bounced around a little bit, and I've settled on the Special Projects team, and I'm pretty happy here.
Okay, so you've alluded to what we're going to talk about today, Mike. You mentioned the Special Projects team. It's kind of an interesting name. It sort of feels a little bit shrouded in mystery. I don't know. It almost feels like special forces in the army or something like that. You know, this is the team that we deploy when things get a little bit tricky, when things are complicated. I don't know if that's the feeling that you guys get, but it does feel as if what you're working on is, let's say, at a higher level than any of the websites I ever built. Put it that way. So the first question, and either of you can tackle this, what is the Special Projects team and which kind of clients do you work with?
So the Automattic Special Projects team, I'll read our little mission statement. We just help interesting people, projects, and organizations have a great experience with WordPress.
Okay, perfect. Can you name drop? Are you allowed to name drop any of the kind of projects that you've worked on before?
For sure. You can see a bunch of the projects on our website, which is specialprojects.automattic.com. The biggest one that I worked with personally was Print Magazine, which is like a publication that has been around since the 1940s, and it has a big history in the design community.
Some of the ones I really were proud of is End the Backlog, which was about backlogs of sexual assault in the country, because they won a Webby for their work. The website won a Webby, and the work they're doing has actually had real impact. Like the numbers and the charts since they started has actually stopped this backlog that's going on. So it's like a real social life impact. And I have some background in that field, so I'm really passionate about it. So seeing that happen was really cool. Also, the site we talked about, one of the sites we talked about yesterday was Johann Ernst, the Explorer, his website, and just the amazing experience of the site itself. The work is pretty amazing. Post Secret is another really cool one that we've worked on. There's a list. We have, over 450 production sites running now that we've built over the years. And it's actually a fun experience, having only been here for 2 years, to periodically go on a website and say, hey, wait a minute, that's one of our websites, because I still don't know the list completely.
Okay, thank you for that. That's great. So we know that some of the websites that you're building have impact. Sounds like some of them especially meaningful to you in particular there, Mike. That's really nice. What's the purpose of the team, though? So as an example, if I rocked up to the special projects team and just said, I have a brochure website for a local veterinary practice in the town where I live, I'm guessing that at some point you're going to filter me out. Maybe I don't qualify as special. And I just wonder, is there a criteria? Is there a criteria based upon the depth of your pockets or the type of project or the industry you're in? Or is it maybe just more, well, there's a notorious company, everybody's heard of those, so they qualify as special? What is the criteria that gets you in?
Well, we've done projects for a huge range of people, like from very high profile projects to, honestly, there is not a vet, but we have a site for a animal adoption agency that I think is actually just a girl, a young girl, a teenager, and we built her a website. So the projects come to us through referrals from other partners that have already existed and from other automaticians as well. So if anyone at the company has a project they think would fit with our mission, we can work on that too.
Okay, so yeah, there's definitely some sort of criteria there, but it seems I was probably missing the target a little bit. So it really isn't necessarily to do with the depth of the pockets or the fact that you are notorious. It really could be anything.
It really can, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. In the presentation blurb that went along with the presentation that you gave yesterday, one of the phrases that you used was, well, you said connecting partners with the best that the WordPress community has to offer. And as soon as I hear the word WordPress community, I kind of imagine the crowd that we're amongst here. Everybody shows up, everybody has their turn, anybody can speak here, anybody can attend here. But the sort of slightly exclusive nature of the word special and the kind of projects that you deal with, how is that connection made? Do you feed back things to the WordPress community? I'm just wondering if you could unpack that sentence for me.
There's a lot there, because we're part of the WordPress community. We are not primarily about making money, but the way I like to word it is we're here to make WordPress look good. We bring things to our partners. We give them the best experience with the best website we can build for them and give them the best experience we can for using WordPress. So we choose tools. We're really big on, like right now, using block editor and all that technology. We've been doing a lot of even no-code builds or low-code builds, only building like specific functionality that has to be coded up, but using the block editor and using the tools so that it's just there. And then when they're working on their website later, they just go in the editor and click and it's done. So very simple. So it's making the WordPress experience a good experience. And then we also, on the other side of it, we try to give back to the community as much as we can. If we do use a plugin, as an example, I was recently on a project where I found a bug in a plugin that we had installed on a site that was a WordPress.org plugin. I went in, I was like, this is the problem, here's the bug, and I fixed it inside so we could get the site going. And then I went on to their forum and said, hey, we found a bug. Here's the bug. Here's how I fixed it. And then they're like, cool, thank you. And the next release had the fix. And we do that with community plugins. We do that with our own products. We'll promote Automattic products for them to use. And if there's a problem with the product, we'll go to the product team and say, we found this. The dog fooding experience, that we dog food pretty much everything that Automattic has to offer. And we find a problem and we say, we'll go to the product team and say, here's the bug we found. And sometimes we'll also say, here's the PR to fix the code.
So it's kind of like a double-pronged thing in that you're creating things, but then contributing back maybe improvements to existing things, but also perhaps creating your own functionality and allowing the WordPress repository to get a hold of that. But also, I suppose the community piece there is that you're creating exceptional websites, exceptional experiences, which then are a kind of advert, if you like, for WordPress as a tool, like a showcase almost. The things that you produce, I'm guessing, are of, without blowing your own trumpets, you would probably regard them as of high quality and good examples of what WordPress itself can do. And I do feel at this moment in time, we're recording this in 2024, that we do have not a credibility problem, but we are competing in a marketplace where the tools that are out there, which you can pay, $20 a month for, we know what we're talking about, these SaaS-based tools, they are beginning to be popular. They've got television adverts, they have giant marketing budgets. So one of the ways that I guess WordPress can promote itself is with exceptional websites that people can look at. So I don't know if you've got anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think internally, because we have our own internal team names, our team is called Team 51, which sounds as mysterious and strange and secretive as special projects, but really the 51 is for 51%. And that is, we want WordPress to have 51% of the internet. And we're doing that by doing things like this, because this is me personally editorializing a little of, before I came to WordPress does kind of have a reputation issue sometimes, because the average external person hears of these sus hosting sites, or because anybody can extend it, anybody can write a plugin, and you get a plugin in there that's junk, and then the WordPress experience is junk, and then they're saying WordPress is junk. And so we're trying to highlight, no, WordPress itself is a solid tool, a solid platform. And if you develop well on it, you will have a solid site. And so we do a lot of that just to kind of build a reputation.
I'd like to add that on the design side of things, someone came up to me after the talk yesterday and said, how does WordPress compete with the other platforms out there that are really design focused? And I think that is what we're trying to do on our team, is show that you can build really well-designed websites with WordPress and using the block editor. It is a more recent thing, I will admit. The block editor only really came to maturity maybe in the last year. And up until then, I was even very anti-block theme as a developer. I'm I can build it better in PHP. I know what I'm doing. But now that you can adjust padding and negative margins and all those things, it's an actual tool that you can use to build nice looking things. There's some work that needs to be done, but it's getting there. And we're confident that the more that we show sites that we build that are full, non-headless builds, straight block themes, that it'll inspire other people to do the same.
One of the things I will often tell people is, I think I'm a pretty good engineer. I am a terrible designer. So you tell me what to make a website look like and do, and I will make it do it. If you look at my websites that I have put together, they are disgustingly ugly because a designer has not looked at them. With the block editor, I've gotten better. I'm able to actually make it look pretty decent because it does a lot of that for me. But it's that thing of, if you have something that's only going to be built by engineers, it's going to look like something an engineer built. If you build it like anybody would build a website on any other platform, where you have designers that design and make the look and the branding, and you get the marketing in there, or whatever team you have, and then the engineers are building what they have said make it look like, you end up with something that's nice and pretty. And WordPress, I think, has always had that capability, although it required a lot more engineering work historically. But now, I think it's amazing now that we now have project builds that I think we've had some that just had no engineer involvement now.
Oh, wow.
Because
the blocks are good
our designers design it, our account managers build it in the block editor, and then they're done.
It feels a bit like Team 51 is a website building agency buried within Automattic then. So again, just to let me understand it a little bit more, we've got designers. Christy's a designer. We've got developers. Mike is a developer. And it sounded like you mentioned marketing as well. There's marketing people as well. What I'm trying to get to with that question, is it almost like an agency buried inside of Automattic?
Yeah, you're hitting the nail right on the head. Our team does operate on an agency model, and there's a couple other teams at Automattic that do as well, one being VIP, and now the other one is lost on me. Oh, the design core. They kind of like do all our internal brand stuff. So Team 51, we are composed of designers, engineers, and project managers, which we call TAMs, aka technical account managers. And we also have an operations team. All of us like work together to build sites as any traditional agency would.
The marketing was an example of how a company would build a website. But yeah, for us internally, some of the partners we bring in have a marketing branch and we will work with them to do the designing. But yeah, we don't do marketing ourselves within the team.
Okay. And I think I'm right in saying that the WP Tavern website, and if you're listening to this, there's a high chance that either you're on an RSS reader and you're listening to this on a podcast player, or you're on the WP Tavern website. I think the Tavern website's one of your projects.
I believe so.
Yeah. I remember working on that or working with other people who were working on it. But yeah, we did that a few years ago. It was before block themes. I think it's actually probably due for a revamp to create a block theme version of it.
I'm going to be in your inbox. Okay. Let's go in this direction. If we're going to categorize your team as special, which is obviously the name, what is special? What do you bring to the table that any other agency out there might not? I am not trying to put you up against or make you give me a competitive analysis statement of how you're different, but what are some of the things that you've noticed in your time there which really does separate it out as a special thing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with our team is that we're just like really WordPress focused and involved in the community and the open source nature of WordPress, which a lot of like other larger agencies building larger sites aren't. They're doing headless builds using whatever sort of build processes they are, and we're like hardcore 100% block themes. So that's one special thing about us.
And while we use the agency model, we don't directly operate like an agency. An agency is a company trying to make money by building websites. So they're going to try to do the things that are going to help them bring in good income. And that's kind of what they're thinking about. We are more, even though we operate on that model, that's how we interact with partners that we're working on with websites and things like that. The things we're doing is not to extract funding from them. Again, it's about us making a project that shines and does good things and makes a site that they will be proud of and brag to their friends about. And so we don't operate in that. And we're also just, the entire team is people that are just really, really passionate about WordPress. We want to make it look good. We want to give the best that we have to our partners, to the community. It's not unusual when we discover a bug or a glitch, there's somebody within minutes saying, okay, who do we need to talk to make sure this works right for everybody else that's running into this?
Do you end up doing some philanthropic work as well? Because this is something buried within Automattic, and Automattic, as we know, the three of us at least do, and dear listener, if you don't, you can go and explore what Automattic do. They've got multiple revenue streams, and so a traditional agency, I'm imagining their revenue stream is client work. And the fact that Automattic has other revenue streams, does that make it possible for you to do website builds that aren't necessarily going to be, air quotes, profitable, that perhaps you could describe as, I don't know, philanthropic? A good example may be the Tavern, actually, because as far as I'm aware, there's no revenue stream coming out of the Tavern. The decision has been made to keep a news organization for WordPress going, and it's being kept alive by your team, but there's no revenue stream there. So I'm wondering, do you have that? Is it possible for you to do things on a more philanthropic nature because of the funding system that you've got?
Yeah, I think exactly what you're saying. We are not like a profits-based team. We work on just trying to showcase the best of what WordPress can do. And so we definitely have done sites for partners that are nonprofits, and we help them build their web presence online.
I think End the Backlog is a great example of that. There's a lot of ones that are they're not profit-making entities. They're just groups that are trying to do better things in the world, and we're providing some service to that. We're not like, this is a good, although that comes into the equation, it's not we're doing this because it's a good social justice thing or something, but it's a good place we can work. But the outcome is definitely there of enabling these organizations to be able to do things that they might not otherwise be able to do because of financial considerations.
But it does sound then as if the overall purpose of the special projects team then, and we did allude to this a little bit ago, but we probably could go a little bit further, is to act like a bit of a showcase for WordPress. And just to sort of exemplify the very best of what it can do, and I don't know if you've got like one place, one domain where we can go and look at the work that you've done, or if it's more of, no, you'll have to be a bit inventive and Google and contact us and we'll tell you what we've built. But it does feel like that's the point. Here's a big property, here's an important thing, whether it's philanthropic or not, and we're going to churn out the best that WordPress can do and thereby sort of vicariously let the community know, here's WordPress, here's how credible it is, here's the kind of people with the stature that they've got who are using it.
As of this week, you can go to specialprojects.automattic.com, which has a list of websites, showcases it, actually has some of the tools we've built and some of the blocks that we've got out there. Going back to contributing to the WordPress community, there's a pull request to put our accordion block into Gutenberg Core. But actually going back to that whole showcasing idea, the actual way back origins of this team go back to when Matt was working for CNET and building WordPress. And he would build WordPress sites for his friends and say, here's a site I made in WordPress. Isn't WordPress cool? I'm not quoting him. I don't know what he actually said exactly, but that's the gist of what was happening. But that was kind of how, when we were starting as a team back in the day, a lot of times it was we'd see a site hosted on, I don't know if it was around back then, but a Wix or a Squarespace kind of environment. And we'd be like, we could make that in WordPress. The team would build a WordPress site mirroring that site and then go to that person and say, look, we made a WordPress site. This is probably going to be a lot easier for you to work with than wherever you are. And that's kind of the origins of literally, let's make WordPress look good by building good WordPress sites.
Forgive me for sort of making this assumption, but it seems like you're both quite happy with the work that you are doing. It's got value. There's some credibility to the work that you're doing. I mean, that kind of stuff going on a CV looks nice, right? And I'm just wondering if somebody listening to this has the thought that, I think I'm doing good work. I think I have that caliber in me. How did you end up dropping into this team? Was it that you were automaticians already? You may have touched on this in your bio at the beginning. I can't remember. Is there a way that you can find yourself into this team? Do you hire externally? There's a lot in there, but just tell us what you can.
Can I say yes?
Yeah, that'll do it.
Because I think we have very different experiences. You got hired into 51. So we'd had very different experiences on this, and I think from both ways. I came in, I got hired by Automattic about 7 years ago, basically rediscovered WordPress, went to a conference, became a happiness engineer doing WordPress.com support. And then I think I said earlier, I kind of can't hold down a job. I switched from WordPress.com support to doing WooCommerce support. And then we had an internal developer apprenticeship program that I went through back to engineering and worked as an engineer on the WooCommerce.com website. But back when I was a WordPress.com happiness engineer, one of the sites came in for support, who happens to be one of my favorite authors. So I saw her site, and actually she made a post on her blog of, I'm having a problem with my like button or something. I'm like, oh, well, I have the access. I'm doing support. I can go check on it. And I went in and I started reading, and it had this little flag on it saying this is a Team 51 site. So I went and looked. It's like, you contact these people. I was like, okay, what is this Team 51? Do they alien secret people? I don't know. Because I was new enough. I didn't know who they were. And so I messaged someone, I was like, here's the thing. And then we got chatting and he started talking about what they're doing. I'm like, oh my gosh, this just sounds really cool. And once an opportunity came in after I was an engineer for a while, and then they just happened to have an internal thing saying, we're looking for some engineers. And I was like, hello, please, yes, and contacted them and then got in. So we do some of that internal hiring kind of thing, but also I think, and Christy can talk more about getting from the outside.
Okay, so there's mechanisms internally within Automattic to make your way toward the team, but Christy's got a different story.
I guess I didn't say this earlier, but I lead the design arm of special projects. When I got involved with Automattic, I've been designing and developing websites, self-taught for 17, 18 years now. And I started with WordPress about 17 years ago when it was so young. And it was February 2020, and I was looking for a full-time role somewhere. And I had a friend who was on the Tumblr engineering team at the time. And he's like, why don't you just apply at Automattic? And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I applied and went through the whole trial and the interview. And the interview was for a product designer. And I don't really do product design. I'm a web UI person. But I went through the trial expecting eventually to get an offer, it would be as the product designer. And they're like, oh, actually, we have this team for you. we think you'd be good on. It's called Team 51. And like I had the same reaction as Mike. Team 51? What is that? It sounds mysterious. And I kind of like looked on the website that they had and looked at who was on the team, and Jeffrey Zeldman was on the team at the time. Oh my God, if I get to work with Jeffrey Zeldman, like amazing. And so I was thrilled to get hired at that time. But I was the first internal designer on the team at that point. They didn't really have anyone else. They were working with some contractors a lot of them are still with us. We've now grown from just me to like 3 other internal designers on our team. So the benefit for my design side of the team is that having internal designers means they can work on internal projects and they're more closely associated with the brand, so they can do like Automattic brand things as well. Because like in addition to the website, sometimes we do other projects. I'm involved in kind of a rebrand for Automattic. There will be something coming hopefully in the next year or so. And that end.
Would it be fair to say then, if I find a website and the logo of Automattic is at the bottom of the footer, would that be something that is likely to have been done by your team?
Some of them, yeah, not all of them. We do some internal builds, but there's definitely ones we haven't done.
Okay. Yeah, so it's not guaranteed, but it's a probable. Do you find yourself involved in Automattic properties that have got nothing to do with WordPress as well? So, I don't know, things like Pocket Casts and, dare I say it, Tumblr, things like that.
We've built Tumblr sites as part of it. We've had a couple people just kind of get directly involved on building Tumblr themes. One of the ones, the first time I heard that we were doing that was actually the Jonas Brothers were going on tour. And one of the leads I've had was actually built that theme. And I think that might have been was that the first one we did? I know they came back, but we built the theme for the Jonas Brothers when they went on tour. And I think there were some others that we built. We built Tumblrs for partners, like along with the sites or things like that. So yeah, we've worked with Tumblr. I don't know that we've done anything with Pocket Cast. That's what I listen to your podcast on.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's my podcast player of choice as well.
Oh, that's right, we did. We built a Pocket Cast blog. We just recently moved that over.
Automattic seems like it's on a clip of purchasing things. So in the more recent past, I can think of Beeper and Tex, and maybe they're the kind of things that in the future will come under your purview as well. I don't know.
If there's a website, if it's an Automattic branded site that belongs to it, we tend to be involved in building those sites and getting them up and running, or doing a redesign and migration of the site into the Automattic platform. I've worked personally, spent some time on akismet.com, jetpack.com, automatic.com. I think I've done a little bit of work there. So like those internal sites, we do work with those. And yeah, I had forgotten we migrated the Pocket Cast blog.
Nice. Now I'm guessing the fact that you've got, both of you, this incredible heritage, and you've obviously surrounded by people of an equal caliber. I'm guessing that the kind of work that you put out means that it has to be of the highest quality. And if somebody was to be thinking, I'd like to work with that team, you have to have really high expectations here. Nothing can go out the door that isn't as good as it possibly can be. I don't really have a question in there, but I'm just sort of asking, is that the case? Do you feel that you are doing the best work that you can do with everything that you put out? No corners cut, go the extra mile, do the extra work, that kind of thing. I'm getting some smiles.
That sounds really high stress.
Yeah. And I wondered if it was.
So there's a kind of a philosophy within Automattic of you're allowed to make mistakes. As a matter of fact, I said earlier, I went through an apprenticeship program to become an engineer again, because I've been doing some sort of coding for decades, but it was always smaller projects. And I knew when I came to Automattic, there was no way I could operate at the scale and the level that Automattic operates at. So I came in as a support person. And then when they had the opportunity for me to go learn this, and when I started my apprenticeship, I was going to work on the woocommerce.com website. And as part of my apprenticeship, no pressure there, as far as I know, the largest WooCommerce site on the internet. And I said something to my lead, something about, as long as I don't crash the site. And he says, oh no, it's not a matter of if you're going to crash the site, it's when. And I fulfilled that. I only crashed it once, so that was good. Yeah, and I've made mistakes on Team 51. I've made some that had some impact. I wish I hadn't, but I did, and I learned from it, and will never do that again, and had learned things as I went. It's definitely not a work cavalier, work fast, break things as some companies operate in. We are very careful, but we also acknowledge the fact that we are human beings that are going to make mistakes, especially because we're operating at the cutting edge of things. A new thing comes in WordPress or is coming in WordPress. A lot of times we'll start implementing it and using it. And sometimes things don't go perfectly. And we have an internal system to make sure that if something does go wrong, we're quick to get it fixed, quick to get everything back to working well. But yeah, we do want to give the best. We do absolutely always give the very best we have to what we're doing. We don't have an expectation of perfection in that. We have an expectation of excellence, but not of perfection, if that makes sense.
Well, I have an expectation of perfection in design. I'd say it's like really hard in design to get things to the level that I really want them to be. That mostly comes down to just like the really little, this finessing at the end of the build, the CSS details. That's what I love. Like I'm a huge CSS nerd. And because I've built most sites, like up until working in Automattic, my background is that I would do it myself and do those afterwards. And it's hard for me to kind of like translate that to a developer a lot of the time. But other people on my team that are younger and have better, I guess, like development handoff practices are really good at like translating to a dev, like, here's the animation I want to see. Here's the details that I want in the site. And the site that Mike mentioned earlier, johannernst.com. So that's JOHANERNST. And I want everyone to see this site because it is, I think, the most perfect example of what we've built. It's like a super high caliber and all the little details on it. And they're still even adding more. Like they're going to add on the site, there's this globe, and then we're going to add a connector of the expeditions around the globe so you can see the kind of like route that he's taken. It's such a good site. Check it out.
Going back to the perfection idea, I'm going to amend a little bit or with what Christy said. The perfection of the design and the way the sites look, that is a thing. We try to give them the absolute best site. And I learned that on one website we worked on that we got the initial site delivered, and then the QA went on for the design QA. And I was one of the people that worked on the couple of hundred issues that they found with the design. A lot of it was, this is shaded a little different. This is just a couple of pixels out of alignment when you're with this particular, like it was very, very detailed design, making the site look perfect, making things absolutely the best it can be. So there is that standard of the site we deliver. I was looking more from an engineering perspective of perfect code is not a thing. And sometimes there is a belief that you have to just do everything perfect. And if you make something go wrong, that's just the end of everything. And we don't have that mindset. We work very, very, very hard to make sure that doesn't happen. The presentation I gave yesterday about the safety net plugin we have comes from that mindset of we want to never risk doing something that's going to impact our partners or any of our websites in a negative way. WordPress is a very large code base. It's not perfect, but our standards for what we deliver very much are very, very detailed.
In preparation for this podcast, I actually asked a few automaticians if they had any idea what your team does.
Nobody does.
Yeah, and not only did they not know, many of them didn't know that it was a thing, the special projects team. So I think the cabal-like nature of it is interesting. You know, there is this perception that, okay, they live in a different warehouse over there and they've got chemicals boiling in test tubes and things like that. So it's kind of interesting, this podcast, peeling it back a little bit and just realizing the sort of more human nature of it.
It is kind of that way, but not by design. It just kind of happened that way because we are so small and we have such a small thing. So it's just not really visible necessarily every day to things that are going on because we're not necessarily putting out product and things like that. So I could see where people, well, again, both of us kind of had that perception before we actually came to the team of this big mysterious thing. And no, it's just really people that really love doing cool stuff.
It sounds like the caliber of work that you're doing is of great interest to you both. You seem to enjoy the space that you're in. And obviously, the difficulty that comes with that is understood. I will, into the show notes, put any of the links that we mentioned today, including and I'm going to call it showcase. I don't know if that was the right word, of the kind of sites that the team have been building. But really fascinating, just pulling back the curtain a little bit. And hopefully, off the back of this episode, some people will reach out to wherever they need to reach out to see how they can become involved. You never know, you might find some job applications coming through. Thank you so much for talking to me today. Honestly, really interesting, just pulling back the curtain a little bit on the team that you're involved in and hopefully making it feel a bit less cabal-like in the process. So Christy and Mike, thank you so much for chatting to me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. This has been fun.
Yeah, thanks so much.